Hey guys, the Firebird is here. It's just me. My brother is not here, like always. Are any of you guys really surprised? Because he was starring a Braun fanbase. Can you imagine that? Like, Braun is such a forgettable character. There's like no one out there who likes Braun. These are the jokes. Don't take it personally if Braun is your favorite character. It's just a running gag in the channel. Anyways, the Transformers War for Cybertron trilogy. Siege came out a little while ago and we're getting Earthrise pretty soon this month. Now, I'm actually pretty hyped for Earthrise, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I feel like Earthrise is like gonna include so many different things that's gonna make every episode like stand out on its own, and it's gonna be very interesting to watch. I'm pretty hyped for the Mercenaries, the Quintessons, Galvatron. There's so much to be excited about when it comes to Earthrise. I'm more excited for Earthrise than I was for Siege. For Siege, I don't know. I have made my disdain for some of the things that are included in Siege pretty well known. I made a couple of videos criticizing the voice acting, criticizing the story, criticizing some of the character choices, and criticizing some of the action. Now, for the most part, I kind of like Siege. Like, I'm not like one of those guys who says Siege sucks, because I feel like it doesn't. A lot of people enjoyed it. It's just that I personally didn't quite enjoy it as much as I thought I was gonna be. Even my mom liked it, like, a lot. And I'm here sitting being like, is it a me problem or what? Today I'm going back to criticizing Siege because the more I've been thinking about this, the more it has been bothering me. Anyway, so do you guys know why you're all here today?
No.
Yeah, you said something about Siege and deaths.
No,
Maybe
you
something.
said something about deaths.
Yeah, something about deaths and Siege.
Yeah.
Death is broken as a concept in Transformers War for Cybertron. In the Transformers movies, for example, we have no shortage of like visual indications as to what can and cannot kill a Transformer. Can fire kill them? If it's hot enough, yeah. Can missiles kill them? It can hurt them, but it's not quite enough most of the time. Are they impervious to damage? Only for small gunfire somewhat. The Transformers movies, as much as they get criticized by fans for killing very popular and beloved G1 characters, a lot of them in a very underwhelming fashion. RC Triplets, I'm looking at you. But at least to the movies as the fans, we have a clear idea as to what can and cannot kill a Transformer. By the time of the last night, the humans are pretty overpowered, I would say, but we still have a pretty good idea as to what's effective and what isn't effective against a Transformer. Now, for Siege, I feel like the show has kinda goofed up at the moment. Listen to this. In the show itself, Autobot Cog gets shot by Impactor and his torso is basically shot in half. Now, only half of him remains and he still survives. Impactor gets smashed by a giant building and he survives. I mean, he's still pretty injured, but he survives that. Ultra Magnus gets shot point blank by Megatron in the chest and dies. But then you got characters like Spinister who gets impaled in the chest, same like Ultra Magnus, and he comes back. Like, what? So he literally pulled a Palpatine.
Dun dun dun.
Spinister, the new
Where's the
Palpatine.
boss music?
Dun dun dun.
Nicely, M nicely. I will throw an eraser at you, M nicely.
No!
And then we have Skywarp, which is gonna be the subject for this video particularly, who gets shot once in the back by Jetfire and has enough strength to go back to Starscream and then die in his arm for dramatic effect.
Skywarp's just weak. That's why he died.
Maybe he's made out of
It's
paper mache. Like, are you guys seeing any consistency here? That is kinda broken in Siege. A Transformer can die if it suits the plot. The only reason why Skywarp even died, in my opinion, is because he knew where the Autobots were hiding. Him and Jetfire both found out where the Autobot base was. So, had he survived, he would have told Starscream where the Autobot base is, and then they would have gone there and like basically, destroyed it. And that is the only reason why, Jetfire shot once and Skywarp died. As for Spinister, the only reason why he came back is because the director did mention that one of his workers spent a lot of time working on the Spinister model, so he was like, he kind of felt bad to see him die, so they just bring him back by the end of Siege, which, It's understandable, you know, you don't want someone's hard work to go to waste, but at the same time, you could have just taken that same CGI model and just make Spinister clones to fill in the Decepticon ranks, because for the most part, the Decepticon army is pretty generic, that you could use some more variety. There's no consistency in the way Autobots and Decepticons die in the show. If you're generic, you're pretty much dead. If you're an important character, then it could be 50-50 for you. Or if it suits the plot. Skywarp had to die for the plot, Spinister came back because they felt like it. Chromia gets ripped in half, like she gets her limbs torn apart and she dies. But in episode 3 we see about yeah?
That was Moonracer, not Chromia.
That was Moonracer.
They all look the same, okay?
Correct yourself.
Actually, you want to hear some?
The point is that in Siege, there's no consistency. And it's not like you can say that, oh, some of these characters, they are actually just more durable than others, and that's how they survive. Which, I mean, that's cool if you wanna, you know, roll that for your own headcanon, but you also have to keep in mind the fact that these characters and like these series, in the series itself, is being made to introduce a new audience to the Transformers universe. Everything here is to like introduce them to the whole concept of the Autobots are the underdogs, the Decepticons are the dominant force on Cybertron, and the Autobots are trying to lead. So it doesn't quite make a lot of sense to like let the fans speculate as to how some characters survive.
I heard somewhere that Skywarp he was fine, but Starscream killed him afterward.
You're wrong about that, because the director came out and said that Skywarp is actually dead, so it's not a clone, he actually died.
It's just his soul.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Oh, okay. Well, then
I
that
mean,
theory
you
is
can't
true.
argue with
I
the
will throw an
director.
eraser at you.
We all
Lazy-
know that's something
That,
Starscream would do,
that
though.
theory does not make sense.
And if anything, this kind of cheapens and kind of ruins some of the tension that can happen for Siege and maybe Earthrise and Kingdom 2. Like, now when watching Earthrise, I'm like, so if that guy gets like ripped in half, is he still alive or is he dead? In fact, if you take a look at Ratchet's makeshift hospital, you can see that there's plenty of Transformers who are missing parts. Some of them are missing half their body and are still functioning. So if a Transformers is ripped apart, is it a 50-50 chance that they can die or not? I mean, Moonracer got ripped apart and she died, but these guys are, you know, ripped apart and they are still alive. Spinister got like, pierced through the chest and he came back just fine. So if Optimus Prime in Earthrise or Kingdom, let's say, whenever they get stabbed through the chest, are they are we gonna assume that they die, or are we gonna be all like, oh, you know, Spinister, he got stabbed in the chest too, I'm sure Optimus will be fine?
And one gets impaled through the spark and doesn't die.
There's a lot of logic. The Autobots need
See, some characters are just naturally OP.
Characters are just in the Bible. Some characters just grab the
What?
Bible.
That doesn't.
Yes, they open the
Spencer
What?
has his own cult.
Some Transformer characters
They
are
pray to
disguised as Jesus.
Primus.
And if we see characters die in the same fashion that we saw previous characters, you know, die on, like if we see Skywarp being killed by one shot in the back, and in the future chapters we see an Autobot or Decepticon be shot in the back and they don't die from their wounds, then that's gonna look very weird. There's an inconsistency here.
Maybe before he was killed, he did some magical spell or something to get escape from his soul, from his actual body, and when the time he felt is right, he came back to something else.
That's not
Is
how
this
it
Harry
works.
Potter now?
Bro, anything can happen, man.
Like in the movies, if an Autobot gets decapitated, they're dead. If an Autobot gets shot through the chest, they're dead, with very rare exceptions. For Siege, we don't get none of that. Jetfire throws a random shot, not intentionally, at Skywarp. By accident, supposedly, he even said I'm sorry to Skywarp before he fled. Impactor was supposedly aiming to kill, and Cox still survived somehow. And that's like one of my biggest criticisms of Siege. And granted, it's probably not a major one if you don't pay too much attention to it. Like, you can watch Siege and not have this argument at all, but it's one of those things that when you look at the series twice, you go all like, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense, because that character survived that hit, so how can this character die from that? And frankly, I feel like this is, you know, mostly the fault of the directors here, because I mean, Spinister, you could have just, you know, gotten rid of him, like being like, okay, Spinister's dead, let's move on, include some other characters, and maybe let's introduce some Spinister clones here and there to fill up the Decepticon ranks. Like, I get the director's sentiment as to wanting to keep him alive, but that just created more plot holes in my opinion. Like, the whole thing with Skywarp and Jetfire discovering the Autobot base and Jetfire killing Skywarp, in itself, is not a bad idea. I feel like that scene could have worked had the context and had the location been different, or the way the whole thing would have gotten down would have been different as well. Like, in itself, that scene is not bad, but it's the way that they went at killing Skywarp which just creates more plot holes, because later in the series we see other characters, you know, get shot directly by some other characters, like Red Alert. Red Alert got shot in the chest, and he survived somehow. So, what's the difference? Does Skythread have a weaker blaster than Jetfire, or is it that Jetfire was just closer to his enemy, and that's how the shot was more effective? Like, Ultra Magnus gets shot in the chest and survives even though, his armor is still somewhat intact compared to Spinister.
But the Magnus armor is.
That's because Magnus had armor.
But that's my point. Magnus has better armor than Spinister, and he still like dies. But Spinister has weaker armor.
Spinister has a cult.
Guys,
And then
the Chad Spinister versus the Virgin Magnus.
Ah, yes.
No.
There's an inconsistency in Siege where we are not sure what can definitely kill an Autobot or Decepticon, and we're not sure what cannot definitely kill one. So far, the thing that seems to indicate what can kill a Transformer and what can't is whether if it's suitable for the plot. Skywarp died for the plot. Spinister just came back because the directors wanted him to. Impactor survived for the plot. Cox survived supposedly for the same thing, even though he's not that popular of a character, and if any of the Autobots were to bite the dust, he will probably be one of the most likely candidates to be killed off right off immediately, as opposed to someone like Mirage or Sideswipe. Moonracer died because they needed someone to get killed, I guess. It's very weird. And Ultra Magnus died, of course, because the plot, because, you know, you needed the Alpha Triumph protocols to reach Bumblebee, and that worked as a catalyst for him joining the Autobots. But that's just my observation after taking a closer look at some of the Siege scenes. But the question of the day for you guys is, do you guys think that Dead is indeed broken in Siege? Or do you guys think that it's not a big deal?
It's
I'm
broken.
completely
It's
inconsistent.
inconsistent.
It's just inconsistent.
as long as you can provide
Inconsistent. Like,
reasonable
literally.
Explanations.
If someone dies, they should stay dead.
Personally, I do believe that there is a problem, and I do hope that for Earthrise and Kingdom, we don't see more of this, and they actually keep Dead consistent. So, yeah. But then again, Skyward could have also been made out of paper mache or Reddits. But anyways guys, before we go, shout out to our patrons: TrueBlue712, Stitch Productions, Stephanie Bowler, Christopher Prime, Predaking Hunter Plays, Mario Gordon, and the absolute madman himself, Jordan the Great, who donated $100. Thanks a lot to you guys. I tip my fedora in gratitude. A link to their channels and our Patreon are gonna be in the description and in the comments down below. Make sure to go check out their channels. Some of these guys do pretty cool content, and if you guys want to shout out your subs, all you have to do is donate to our Patreon. By donating to our Patreon, you get quite a few rewards. You can collab with me in some of my videos, you get exclusive roles on my Discord server, you can request your own videos, maybe even appear in some of my videos if you so choose, and I'm adding more rewards as time goes on. So yeah, it's a pretty good deal. But keep in mind that it is completely optional, because freedom is the right of all sentient beings. So yeah, thank you guys for donating, it's much appreciated, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.